My name is Catherine Meckel. I met Janet when I was a student at Columbia, and she was my advisor. She was on my dissertation committee. She's had a really profound influence on my career, from what the topics that I work on, how I approach and think about economics research, and also through her generous mentoring over the years. I just feel incredibly grateful to have crossed paths with her when I did at Columbia. So thanks, Janet.
Hey Janet, as you know, my name is Reed Walker and one of your former students, but maybe someone watching this video doesn't. I want to say two things very quickly. The first is that I'm really sad not to be able to be at this amazing sounding event. And second, I just want to say that I'm incredibly grateful for everything that you've done for me and for the profession. I've literally learned so much about advising, about public good provision, about leadership, and I'm incredibly grateful to have had those experiences that I try to pass forward quite literally every day. Hope you have a great weekend, a great event, and I look forward to crossing paths sometime soon.
Hi, this is Lauren Nicholas. I'm a professor of medicine at the University of Colorado, and I first met Janet at Columbia in 2005 or 2006 when I took her labor economics class. And subsequently, she served on my dissertation committee, so I think she's been very helpful throughout my career in terms of ideas that I come back to frequently, as well as getting the dissertation done and sort of launching a career from there. For a number of years, I taught a health econometrics class to PhD students, all of whom I'm proud to say know how to do Curry-Gruber instruments. So, although I haven't used that much in my work, it's very relevant to a lot of papers that have come out of the class. And so that's been another great way of keeping Janet's legacy going.
Hello, my name is Amanda Kowalski. I've known Janet since she gave a seminar in my department during my first year as an assistant professor, and she has been my mentor since then. She's also been a role model in the many things that she does. Thanks, Janet.
I'm Anna Azer, and Janet was my advisor at UCLA over 20 years ago. And I remember talking to another student of Janet's at the time, who would come to the conclusion that after talking with Janet about his work, in which Janet would patiently listen and then suggest another method or modification to his question, he would double down and, after many frustrated attempts, realize that Janet was right, that she was always right, and that he only wished he'd realized that sooner. And after 20 years, I can confirm that Janet is always right. She's patiently and generously provided advice to me that has always been incredibly wise. One time in my life, I didn't follow her advice, and I can still to this day say that I regret it. Her ability to foresee important questions, to steadily build a robust and highly influential research agenda around the economics of children, to mentor students, to provide an environment in her department and in our profession in which scholars, junior and senior alike, can produce the best work possible. To be a role model to me and to so many others is just so unique and inspiring. And to have been Janet's student and co-author, I consider myself incredibly fortunate and grateful.
My name is Dan Zeltzer, and I was fortunate to have Janet as my PhD advisor at Princeton. And you helped me in so many ways, but I want to highlight one superpower that I always find very inspiring, which is your ability to truly focus on the question first before we get hung up on the details of data availability or design. And I think this has made for a truly remarkable career. So thank you, Janet, for inspiring us all to focus on what matters and to not just write papers, but truly advance knowledge. Happy birthday.
Hi, my name's Gabriel Swigel, and I'm one of Janet's PhD students here at Princeton. I started working with Janet as a research assistant the summer after my first year of graduate school, and I've been really lucky to have her as my advisor ever since. Janet is everything you hope for as an advisor, a brilliant research pioneer, generous with her time, and deeply committed to her students' success. Working with Janet on on projects on children's mental health care in the Blue Cross Blue Shield data has been the most formative part of my PhD at Princeton so far. I'm so grateful to Janet for her guidance, for her example, and for all the time and energy she's invested in helping me grow as a researcher. So thank you, Janet.
I'm Hillary Hoynes, and I'm very excited to be able to be at this celebration of Janet's incredible career. I've never known economics without Janet Curry, as she's been around for as long as I've been an economist. And I would say more recently, we've had an opportunity to get to know each other better as she had a sabbatical in Berkeley and I had a sabbatical in New York. And I've really enjoyed getting to know her better outside of the seminar room. There's many ways that Janet's been incredibly important in my career, and I would just isolate two of them. One is her dedication to the topics that she's studying and the interest in learning more and broadening the breadth of understanding on a certain topic. And I really appreciate that. And the second is just her leadership. And, one of the things that I think about is how to just be more like Janet. So thank you, Janet, and really looking forward to the conference.
Hello, Janet, it's Marianne. I haven't had the privilege of being your advisee or your co-author, but you and your work have inspired me in many ways. And I still remember the first time I saw you present at PAA. I was a newly minted PhD, still at the beginning stages of learning this job, and I watched you present some of your Head Start work, having absolutely no idea who you were. And I remember thinking, wow, this is exactly the kind of researcher I want to be. I don't know whether you remember, but we also co-mentored a group of female assistant professors at the CSWEP Early Career Mentoring Workshop a few years ago. And I'll admit I was pretty intimidated when I found out that I was going to be paired up with you. But I'm so glad that it happened. By working with you, I learned a great deal about both research approaches and insights, but even more about how I might more effectively mentor my own students and early career colleagues just by watching you. I'm also grateful that I had the opportunity to get to know you a little bit better as a person, and I was really moved by your willingness to make yourself vulnerable and share bits of your personal life during our work-life balance sessions. That was such a valuable contribution to all the young scholars who are or will be challenged with similar issues over the course of their careers and lives. Thank you for your leadership across the board, including your pioneering scholarship, generous mentoring, and professional leadership. Your contributions have had more positive spillovers than I'm guessing you can imagine, and I'm looking forward to following the next evolution on all three fronts. Congratulations.
Hi, I'm Maya Rossen-Slater. I met Janet as a first-year PhD student at Columbia. I asked her about summer RA opportunities, and she invited me to work on a literature review for her handbook chapter, Human Capital Development Before Age 5. I accepted, and the rest is history. It is not an exaggeration to say that I would not be where I am today without Janet's support. I still regularly reach out to her for advice on anything from the tenure process to deciding on service commitments to getting her thoughts on a research idea or anything in between. I'm also very grateful for her support during several personal situations, including a major health issue in my first year as an assistant professor and as I became a mom to 2 kids. Janet's impact on the economics of child development is transformative. But on a personal level, I feel unbelievably lucky that I have benefited from being one of Janet's students. Thank you, Janet.
Hi, I'm Peter Nilsson. Janet has been super important for my career, and her work and mentorship has been incredibly valuable. I met her back in 2007 the first time, I think, and since then she's been around at all types of events. Even when my first kid was born in Princeton, she was super supportive, and I'm just super happy to be able to come to Princeton again and celebrate her career.
Janet, in the first 2 years of doing my PhD at Columbia, you were right there in the faculty, but I hadn't yet figured out what I wanted to do. So what a bummer. I've thought many times that I didn't figure out a little earlier that I wanted to do the kind of work that I do today. But despite not being my advisor, you've been so kind to me over the years, and I'm grateful for all your support. Your work is a true inspiration to me, like to so many others. And it is a delight to get to celebrate it on this occasion.
Hello, my name is Stephen Heider. I'm a professor of economics here at Michigan State University. I met Janet when I was at the RAND Corporation, and we had a joint seminar with UCLA. I've had the good fortune to write 3 papers with her. To me, the hallmark of Janet's research is working on very important questions and making sure that they're always clearly linked to public policy. I can't imagine somebody who's done that better in their career than Janet. Thank you for all you've done for me and for the profession, Janet.
Hi, I'm Mark Stabile. Janet has been a mentor and a friend for 24 years. We first met at an MBER Summer Institute cocktail party. She was taking care of her son in the corner, so I took my opportunity to meet her when she couldn't get away. And as I know has happened for so many people, within 5 minutes, my research career shifted directions, and I've never looked back. We became co-authors and friends, working on comparative child well-being and then on mental health. I can't overstate how much I've valued our working relationship and her sage advice ever since. I'm very happy to be part of this celebration with you, Janet.
Hey, hi Janet. That is April 2025, and I am standing in the U.S. Arboretum, the National Arboretum here in DC, in the Azalea Garden. I know you like gardening, and I thought hard about what I can give you. So this is what I give you. I give you the Azalea Garden in the U.S. National Arboretum. You can have it for memories of me. I wanted to thank you for being the best advisor one could ever hope for. I wanted to thank you for your patience while I was in graduate school. I wanted to thank you for turning me into a somewhat decent researcher, and for teaching me how to write, and for teaching me what research really is. But most importantly, I want to thank you for lighting a light when there seems to be a lot of darkness around, and continuing to be an example to all of us of what one can be and what one should strive to be as a researcher and as a human being as well. So Wednesday morning, 10 o'clock, right about now, is your time forever for me. I wish you all the best in your future exploits in Yale, and I hope we get to spend a lot of time together in the future as well.
Hi, I'm Diane Alexander. And I'm Molly Schnell. We both met Janet while we were graduate students at Princeton. We feel so fortunate to have had Janet as our advisor, co-author, and mentor. Especially if we've transitioned to being faculty ourselves and discovered how difficult it can be to manage research, advising, teaching kids, and partners. We are forever grateful for the amount of time and patience that she committed to working with us.
Yeah, we knew as students that having Janet as an advisor was special, but it's become even more apparent as we've transitioned to advising students ourselves what a concerted effort Janet made to go out of her way to support and invest in our development and career trajectories.
Thank you so much, Janet.
We really appreciate you.
Hey, honey bunny, what's your name?
I'm Neil Alexander Schwanz.
Do you know who Janet Curry is?
She's a famous economist.
And why is Janet Curry important to you?
Because she's why my parents met.
Oh, that's so sweet.
My name is Anran. I met Janet starting from the second year in my grad school. Through working with her, I learned so much from her, and she has always been a role model that I look up to in the profession.
Hi, my name is Stefano Della Vigna, and I have not had the pleasure to be a colleague of Janet. I don't work on environmental or health or child economics. And yet, Janet is one of the economists that I learned the most, one of the people I really most admire in the discipline. And that really tells you the extent of the influence, the generosity, the extraordinary person that Janet is. So just 2 anecdotes. I had a pleasure to write on work on a paper with her and with Enrico Moretti and Vikram Pathania. And in one of the weekly calls, we were discussing an issue of detail, but detail that was important to make the case more credible. And Janet volunteered, sure, I'm going to do that. I'm going to take care of it. And it was reasonable to think. She was chair at Columbia at the time. That might take a week or more. Maybe we'll pick it up from her. 10 hours later, detailed email, full set of results, and clearly explained, case closed. It was just amazing. That's kind of dedication that she has to the detail, to doing serious science, and to carrying her part of the weight in a project. The second thing is Janet is a person. I was at the MBR and my mom was with me. I had small kids, and Janet comes by and I introduce my mom, and Janet talks to my mom as though she was the most important person in the world, my mom. And that's just kind of generosity that Janet has, to kind of be there as a kind person at the same time as she is this incredible intellect and contributor. Thank you so much, Janet.
Hello, my name is Franco Peracchi. I first met Janet in September 1983, 42 years ago, at Princeton, where we both started our PhD in economics. She was a fantastic classmate. We took several courses together, including the labor sequence. And then I was fortunate to have Janet as a colleague at UCLA, and later as a terrific host at Princeton when I was visiting in 2006, and again in 2013, 2014. I'm looking forward to the celebration in June.
Hi, I'm Marion Bittler, and I first met Janet in around 1996 or 1997. I was a research assistant at the NBER. I was going to MIT at the time, and Jim Paterba put me in touch with her as someone who needed an RA to work on the NLSY. And that was the start of a fantastic learning experience that has lasted my entire career. I got to work on something that we put into my dissertation that she was on. We then later wrote a couple other papers, and she's been a consistent and wonderful mentor for my entire career. And I just want to thank you for all that you've done, Janet.
My name is Herti Steingrímsdóttir. I'm an associate professor at Copenhagen Business School. I did my PhD at Columbia University and was lucky enough that Janet Curry was hired as a professor there shortly after I started my PhD. Her influence on my own path was profound. So first of all, she introduced me to fields like health economics and family economics. Second, she was a very important female role model. And last but not least, she was a very patient and encouraging PhD advisor when I needed one. So thank you, Janet.
I am Adriana Corredor Waldron. I did my postdoc at Princeton under the mentorship of Janet. Thank you so much for everything that you did for me and that you continue doing. I learned a lot, not only about research, but also on, I think it's amazing how Janet created a space for all of us, even with very different interests, and how, I feel that we can all grow in different ways or at a different pace, and she kind of like knows how to mentor you in these different paces and topics. So thank you, Janet. I hope you enjoy your tribute.
I'm Erdal Tekin. I first crossed paths with Janet about 20 years ago at one of the Society of Labor Economists meetings when I was still a new assistant professor. I attended her session, and her presentation sparked a question in my mind. After the conference, I emailed her to get her opinion. I wasn't expecting a response, but she wrote back. It is fair to say that that moment was a turning point in my career. She has been an incredible mentor to me, someone I've learned so much from and continue to learn from today.
Hi, my name is Matt Nidell. I first met Janet when I was a grad student at UCLA, and she became my dissertation advisor. There's a long list of ways in which she influenced me, but I'll pick a few quick stories. One, Janet's known as a straight shooter. When I was taking second year labor econ with her, I got a B+. which, as we all know, is a pretty low grade for second-year PhD classes. I asked Janet why, and she told me she didn't think I worked very hard. As much as that hurt at the time, it was a good kick in the butt for me. In our crazy grade inflated world, I really appreciate her using that information on my grade as a way to motivate me. Despite this interaction and my intense fear of Janet, I pushed on and still worked with her. Her tireless dedication was amazing, really like no one else. And one thing she said to me that always stuck with me was something like, "You get better at writing papers by writing papers." It's kind of obvious, but as a grad student, it was really helpful because we often think about searching for perfection, but sometimes we need to learn when to accept what we're doing is still useful and to stop and write things up. One thing that's closely related is that, as we all know, applied micro papers have very heavy data slogs, and it's really costly to wait until you've assembled all of your data perfectly before you run your analysis. One thing Janet would encourage me to do is try to get to results early to see if there's something there, and take some kind of shortcuts along the way, and then maybe later come back and fine-tune things. I use that tip to this day. The last thing I want to close on is when I was going up for tenure, I was working on one paper that I wanted to place high to improve my case. So I wrote to Janet to ask if she wouldn't mind looking at it, to which she replied, "Of course, you're stuck with me for life." So I'm stuck with her. Kind of amazing to think. And in typical Janet fashion, the paper came back with not only useful comments, but red marks all over it. So Janet, thank you for all you've done to help me to get where I am.
I'm Mike Cassidy, and I'm an assistant professor at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. I'm able to say that, in large part, because of Janet Curry. I wasn't a superstar when I went on the job market in 2019, but Janet gave me a chance as a postdoc. Then she let me stick around for 4 years while my wife and I had 3 kids. Janet is obviously an exceptional scholar, but more importantly, she's a good person. My career is proof of that. In return, I've contributed 0.06% of her citations, so, fair trade.
Hi, I'm Meltem Dysel from the University of Copenhagen. Janet and I first met at the IHEA meetings in Basel, where she delivered a memorable keynote. Afterwards, we've connected at workshops, and those interactions eventually led me to spend a semester visiting her at Princeton. During that time, I experienced firsthand how committed Janet is as a co-author. Always generous with her time, thoughtful in her feedback, and fully engaged despite her seniority and busy schedule. Janet, you're a rare example in our field. Thank you for the inspiration, the mentorship, and your kindness. I feel incredibly lucky to know you.
Hi, my name's Marisa Herman. Janet Curry was my PhD advisor at Columbia. As a research assistant, I worked with her on a book chapter on infant and adult health in Appalachia. And we heard this book influence policymakers because no one had known how poor outcomes in Appalachia were. I took this lesson on the range of studies that can support policymaking to Mathematica, where for the last 12 years, I've worked on education research to help federal, state, and district policymakers improve educational outcomes. Congratulations, Janet, on your long and influential career.
My name is Yu Soo-jo. I'm Janet's current student at Princeton. From working with her as a research assistant, she had been my advisor since essentially my first year. She is such a dedicated and supportive advisor, and I'm so grateful to have so much time to discuss my research with her. The best thing I learned from her is being picky about my own research project. She always reminds me to answer the most important questions and answer them in a simple and straightforward manner. I hope one day I can have a Janet voice in my head to guide me through my career, but if not, I guess I will still hear it from her. Thank you, Janet, for being here for all of us.
My name is Sude Saberyan, and I first met Janet at STA conference in 2022. From the very first conversation, she opened doors that reshaped my path in ways that I couldn't even have imagined. What stood out is how approachable and inclusive she is. You immediately feel welcome, supported, and seen. Janet, I admire you not only for your mentorship, but also for space you create for everyone. You lift people up by simply being yourself, and I will always be grateful for that.
Janet, here are 2 things I learned from you that I tell my students. I'm Leah Brooks. I'm now a professor of public policy at George Washington University, and I know Janet as my advisor at UCLA. I graduated in 2005. Janet helped me get on my feet as an academic. 2 of Janet's wisdoms I repeat to all of my students. First, how to write a paper. Make your tables and figures, the paper then writes itself. Second, Janet always told me, don't assume, test. Don't throw away data you could use to test where results don't happen. And when you can, use data to test your assumptions. And last but not least, Janet said to me in partial exasperation, you have the instincts of a historian. You want to describe, not test. This was very insightful, and it remains true. Thank you, Janet. You've been an enormous source of inspiration and help for me. I appreciate it. We wish you all the very best.
My name is Anna Journey, and I'm an assistant professor at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. I first met Janet over the phone during an interview for a postdoc position. I clearly remember feeling like I have completely bombed it. I was literally in tears, leaving my office afterwards when a classmate asked what happened. I remember I responded, "Can you believe it? Out of all interviews, I've just managed to completely ruin an interview with someone who wrote the Handbook of Labor Economics chapter." Fast forward a few months later, I was surprised and delighted to receive Janet's postdoc offer. When I decided without any hesitation to accept it, some of my advisors urged me to think twice, suggesting that I could be foregoing a real job for a glorified research assistant position. Little did they know how far from the reality that assessment was. I'm immensely grateful to Janet for allowing me to grow into who I am today professionally. Admittedly, there is still quite some room there, but without Janet's insightful advice and most importantly, her patience, probably the size of the Empire State Building, I wouldn't be where I am today. Thank you, Janet, and I hope to continue making meaningful contributions to the field under your guidance.
Hi, I'm Maria Rosales, and I first met Janet as a graduate student when she gave a seminar at the University of Chicago. Her work on the importance of early childhood circumstances and the role of social policy in boosting children's human capital has been a major inspiration for my research. I later had the privilege of being a visiting scholar at the Center of Health and Well-Being at Princeton, and since then, Janet has been an amazing mentor for me, both research and career-wise. All of these experiences have been among the most impactful in my professional growth. Thank you so much, Janet, for being a builder and a role model in our profession.
Hi, Janet, Hans Schwand here. You've always been such an inspiring and generous mentor, and I really want to thank you for that. So, for example, when I first met you in 2011, I was a random grad student visiting New York, and you took time to meet with me for 45 minutes, and you even offered me an office next to yours if in case I wanted to work more during my visit. Or, for example, like a year later, when you interviewed me for my postdoc position, and you told me about a project about foreclosures. I've never had heard the word before in my life. I thought you were talking about firm closures, so I was very confused, and I just asked the most confusing questions. And you offered me the job anyways, and you said the only condition was that I had to work for half of my time with you. And I couldn't believe how lucky I was, and I still can't believe how lucky I've been to be able to meet you. So thank you for all of that.